Jimmy might have been part of that last generation that actually um, didn't really realize what it was like to have top flight soccer here growing up. And it's a little different mentality because when you're a youngster and you're growing into it, he didn't really get the chance to experience watching the likes of a Pelé, watching
Mm.
Beckenbauer, or down here, Gerd Muller, Nene Kubias, Ray Hudson, etc.
Nene Kubias, you say? I'm
Yeah,
glad you included that person. I'm gonna
yeah.
keep going, Phil. Keep going.
Pibe and Rangan on the same team. Can you imagine it?
It was
But anyway,
unbelievable. Unbelievable.
to experience that and then all of a sudden just have it fall off of a cliff
Mm.
and to be absolutely nothing against Missile, nothing against what was going on in the NPSL, et cetera. There were some nice efforts. There were some great moments in the A-League and WSA and everything else like that, but it wasn't first division. So we have the World Cup. We prove that soccer can succeed if it's done well. And then, as Jimmy talked about, the delay, which was smart. It's better to wait and do it right than to fall off a cliff and never get a second chance. So they made sure the first impression would be good. But in answer to your question, yeah, being there at Spartan Stadium in San Jose, watching the Earthquakes take on DC United, the Clash, excuse me,
Amazing.
marketing geniuses. And even then, just leading up to it, you had everyone down on the field. You had the jets flying by, parachutes dropping balls off. That is still probably my favorite moment of being a broadcaster. Number one, because it was personal. And it was my trip through a desert as well. And I was almost a fan representative getting a chance to experience this up close and personal.
Right.
And it was very emotional to see the return of soccer. And then they actually kicked the ball off. And you realize there was still a lot of work to be done.
A lot of work to do. A lot of work to do.
Did the parachute end up landing in the right spot is what I want to know.
It did. And thank goodness for Eric Winalda, the ball did as well eventually. I was just afraid, again, thinking of the Rick Rileys and everyone else in the world that had their arrows aiming for a bullseye.
Yeah, I remember that.
The first match goes scoreless, and you're going to the penalty shootout or the 35-yard shootout to decide.
Amazing.
But Winalda made sure there was a crooked number up on the screen at the end. So
and it was a good goal too. It wasn't
feeling, like, and it was the start again to where we are right now, seeing the World Cup about to come back.
Yeah.
No, it's. I'm glad he scored as well. Phil, I remember watching that game, and it was a good goal. He made Jeff Agus and then curled it into the corner, and so it was nice that it was something worthy of oohing and awing about. If it had just been an own goal or something, it just would have still allowed the Rick Rileys of the world to well, let's look at this game, so I can't even score a proper goal or whatever the crap is, without really understanding the subtleties and nuances. But I was very proud as well that the league had gotten started, that there was finally some follow through on the promise from the '94 World Cup, and it gave kids my age a chance to see that this was possible in this country. And I think that's really important to the development and to the dreams of certain kids who maybe played other sports, but now there was a viable option to potentially play professionally here in your own country and to represent the city where you grew up. And that was I could only watch UCLA games when I was a kid. There was no professional league, as Phil mentioned. There was no NASL, so I had to go watch the LA Lasers and indoor soccer.
What a name.
And yeah, amazing. Or the San Diego Sockers. I would
no way. That's the name.
And by the way, don't mess with them. They're amazing. Or they were.
Are like one of the most accomplished indoor teams in the history of
that. We need to bring all these names back. I don't know what needs to happen, but we need to revitalize that. I love everything about it.
Jimmy, you need to make sure that Luis wears a Colorado Caribou jersey to the
Oh my God, what a name. I just like the idea of these owners. It's 3 a.m. They're wasted and they're just I'm gonna call my team the San Diego Sockers because I want to.
Dude, they are ballers. That's with the K. It's with the K.
Even better.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Just go and look at all the nicknames over the years.
But Jimmy, would you say then that the next stage then, right, leading up to that, after a few years now, MLS developing or at the very least trying to go step by step, then comes 2007, right, and then comes obviously David Beckham's arrival, the designated player rule. Would you say that that's really the next step that not only elevated the league or maybe made it, at the very least, from a marketing perspective, notable?
Yeah, I would say that I played through a portion of MLS 1.0 and MLS 2.0, and I'd say that 2.0 started when David Beckham came into the league. In MLS 1.0, I'll give you an example. When I didn't get drafted. When I got signed by the San Jose Clash, we would have to go change at Spartan Stadium Okay, so but that we couldn't use San Jose State. That's where we couldn't use their fields. We couldn't use the fields that were right outside of our locker room.
Oh my God.
We had to get in cars and drive 30 plus minutes down to a youth facility in Morgan Hill. For everybody that's in the Bay Area is like, are you insane? Then because you're like, I don't want to drive back after practice and go back there because you probably live closer to this field than you do to the locker
room.
Stay
overnight there or whatever.
Well, yeah, you stay overnight in these little sleeping tags and tents. That'd be amazing. But no, we would change out of the trunk of our cars and hand our dirty stuff to the equipment manager, or our equipment manager's like, I can't take all this. You have to go wash your own stuff for that. I mean, it's insane that was our.
God.
No, and now, Jimmy, we're at the point where you have young guys like Kobe Henry, who never even played in MLS. He's down in the lower divisions, signing $1 million deals to play in the first division in France.
It's unbelievable, Phil. I mean, it's crazy. And there's like $100 million training facilities now. I can't, in some ways, I can't even believe that it's real. And not that these guys that have never experienced are spoiled, but they are kind of spoiled. You know, they got the goods. They have everything at their disposal now to be top players. And there really is no excuse if they can't squeeze everything out of what they have. Whereas the rest of us,
because of your story, though, that it's come to this, I think.
Yeah. I mean, somebody had to walk the path, and that was my time to make that happen. But when Beckham came in, I want to use this story as an example, because when Beckham came in, he would hear about this stuff. And he would be like, what the hell? This isn't you can't treat people like this.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden,
hold on, let me do the Beckham impression. This can't be right. I've got to go there and sort it out.
That's amazing.
No, but by the way, Jimmy's talking truth here, because it was basically David Beckham sitting in first class, looking back at all the other guys who were cramped like 8 to a seat. And he ends up going back and joining them for a bit and then changing it. He started the procedure, and now we see a lot more of it, especially with international play, that we end up having charter flights. I mean, you're staying in better hotels, eating at better restaurants, better training grounds. And those are things you don't think about with David Beckham. You're thinking about bringing in maybe other names. But because of that, things that maybe Donadoni, Echeverry, Valderrama put up with or were given separate treatment, David Beckham kind of lifted the entire league.
Yeah.
Well, we would hear as players how the Galaxy were being treated. And at this point, we weren't unionized, right? There was no players union yet.
So what did you feel as players, as your team?
Like that is the BS. That's super cool that Beckham's getting that change for the Galaxy, but that's now feels like an advantage that the Galaxy
has. The disparity is like insane. Right.
Not only did they sign him to big money and they got a top player, and it was cool because once Beckham signed, the whole league became a water cooler topic, and people are like, dude, did you hear Beckham signed in MLS? Yeah. That's crazy. He's coming up here in like 2 weeks. You want to go? Like, we never had that type of buzz before. So there was.
No, I was actually on a plane with Ty Keogh and Frank Yallop, and there must have been like 6 people on this plane. And Frankie's like halfway back. Everyone else is in the front. We're trying to figure out what's going on. And I think Frankie knew what he was in for, because now could you imagine managing with the media horde coming in and all the attention and trying to tell David Beckham what to do. Now, the good thing was, and I think one of the reasons it worked is, while Beckham knew how things should be, he also was a perfect teammate, a captain, a leader. A lot of the stuff that he might complain about was probably done behind closed doors, had other people perhaps bring it up. He was not the disruption that I think Yallop might have feared. But if you notice, Frank Yallop didn't stick around as manager much longer because they needed someone who could perhaps handle that. And it was this whole change. Now you're seeing bigger managers come in, younger managers, new styles. Yeah. And I think it's, again, transition to the point where we do have the headliners. Not all of them are as successful as Gonzalo Higuain, but you're also starting to see some of the younger players come up. And with the importance of the academies and selling players off, it's not just Dallas anymore, the Dallas and the Red Bulls. Every single one, they're bringing players down from Alaska. I mean, it used to be, if you didn't live in the shadow of the stadium, good luck. But now I think MLS has joined the real world.
Yeah, and it set the trend, as you mentioned, specifically the Galaxy. When somebody like Zlatan Ibrahimovic comes to the league, it's like, well, historically, we can deal with this and we can kind of turn it into, at the very least, the same thing than how, well, not exactly the same, but how Beckham arrived to the league.
And some people talk about retirement leagues, Luis, sorry, and Jimmy.
No, go ahead, buddy, go ahead.
Some people talk about retirement leagues, but you need to have those superstars to draw the attention, to get the media to throw $250,000 a year.
You need a balance. It can't just be one thing. It needs
you need to have the journeyman, the Rui Diaz's, etc., bring up
Yeah.
another Peruvian.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate
No
it.
problem. But then, and then you need to have the youngsters coming through to keep the pipeline flowing. You need to get them in the door, but then you need to show them something to get them to come back.
There are three things in MLS that I feel always need to be specific in order for it to continue to grow, which is, I believe, what it's doing. And what you just said, right? These stars that have proved their worth in Europe and coming here, fine. But the second part is the developing of talent within the country, and also the thing that I personally like the most is the extra focus on Latin American yet undiscovered talent that comes in. And that's going to be a massive part. Jimmy, go ahead, jump in.
No, I was just going to jump in and piggyback Phil's sentiments about signing these players. Yes, you know, we get a Wayne Rooney or whatever, they're past their sell date, Zlatan. But when they come in, there's still a standard that they've seen in their career. And I think that it's up to the organization that signs these players to listen to what these guys have to say. It might be construed as he's high maintenance and this and that, but I think what the Galaxy did and smartly did with David Beckham was that Tim Leiweke, who really kind of generated this idea of a designated player and getting Beckham to sign, and one of the architects of all that, he listened and then he did something about it, because there's been a lot of executives, we talked to a lot of people along the way, us players, that this isn't right. We shouldn't be treated like this. If you want to be taken as one of the top 5 leagues or sports leagues in this country, this is not how you treat your players. And this is not how it should be. And now it's starting to evolve into that. And somebody, as I mentioned before, a generation of players or two had to kind of walk that path to get it to where it is now. And Zlatan still comes in and can probably still nitpick about how it could be better. But ultimately, and I think this is to Phil's point about getting kids from Alaska, we finally have an infrastructure that, okay, the platform's there, we can see the top, but what's the pipeline to get there? There now seems to be
the foundation,
a more of an obvious path to say, hey, if you do these things and you do it well, you're going to have an opportunity to be seen by proper scouts, proper coaching. And if it all works out, then we're now starting to identify players of all walks of life, to your point, Luis, which is very, very important. But even now, I still feel like our scouting could be better, our coaching could be better, our refereeing could be better.
Absolutely. It's not
perfect. But it's a continued evolution, and I think that things are moving in the right direction.